A few years ago, while I was visiting some of the quilt shows, I came across a darling display of these tiny little pincushions. They immediately caught my eye. I love all things miniature, and this just looked like a tiny little cake. Isn't it adorable? The secret to this little circular shape is actually a bottle cap. So I was intrigued and ready to figure out how to make these. So I'm super excited to share this tutorial with you. Supplies needed are wool felt, a piece of ribbon that's a little bit wider than your cap, embroidery floss, embroidery hand sewing needle, and of course a bottle cap. This one is from a Coffee Mate creamer bottle. And don't forget your polyfill stuffing. We're going to trace the bottle cap on the wool felt just around the perimeter for the circle, which will be the base. So go ahead and cut out your circular piece. Now that fits right there on the bottom of the bottle cap. Then we're going to take our ribbon to cut to size. You're just going to want to wrap it around that bottle cap, overlapping about 1/2 inch. Trim that piece. Apply some fray check to both ends just to keep your ribbon from unraveling. Thread your needle, take your ribbon, wrap it around the bottle cap, folding under the end where it overlaps so it has a clean finish. And be sure you have your ribbon going in the right direction. Then take your needle and thread and you'll just sew around that overlapped seam. A few stitches. Now we're going to take the bottle cap, turn it upside down, place the circle of wool felt right on the bottom, and then using a blanket stitch, starting at that seam where the ribbon overlaps, we're going to secure or stitch the wool to the base of the ribbon. So you want to take your time and do this stitch slowly and evenly, being sure to catch each loop at the top. That is how you create the blanket stitch, and it creates an edge of thread that goes right along the base of that seam line. So you'll want to finish that blanket stitch all the way around the entire perimeter of the bottom edge of the bottle cap. Now when you get to the other side here, we're going to do the few final stitches, and there you have that base bottom side of the bottle cap stitched down. So now we're just going to push our needle right up through that overlapped seam line so we have thread there at the top to attach the top of the pincushion. Now we're going to cut a large square. This is about 1 inch bigger than the diameter of our bottle cap. So here we have a 3-inch square. We're going to go ahead and cut this out and then fold in the corners to just rough cut this into a large circle. Now I have my needle threaded, and I'm just going to sew a running stitch or a large basting stitch right around the entire perimeter of this large circle. Then you'll just gently pull that thread. It gathers up the edges, so we are creating a little ball. That ball is going to fit right inside the bottle cap when we're done. So I'm going to bring over now all of my polyfill stuffing, and I'm just going to stuff this in as tightly as I can. This takes a little bit of coordination to get it all to stay inside, but you can pull your gathering thread as you get the stuffing in there. Pack it in. You want this to be a very tight, firm felt ball. Once you have that to the desired amount of stuffing, then you can go ahead and pull that thread tight and then tie a knot to secure that ball at the base. Now we have our open little bottle cap. We're going to set that felt ball inside, and this looks good. There's actually a little bit of room in here, so we're going to add a little bit of stuffing. You could also put a weight in the bottom if you wanted your pincushion to have some weight to it. This helps raise this ball a little bit. So this is better. Now I'm going to have to hold this in tightly. I have my thread already going from the opposite side, and now we're going to do that blanket stitch along the top edge of that piece of ribbon all the way around. So again, you're going to want to just take your time here. So each blanket stitch evenly spaced apart, the same distance as you have them on the bottom, so everything looks consistent and lined up. This takes a bit of time, but it's a great project to do, when you're driving on a road trip or you're watching TV. Lots of hand sewing projects come in handy during that time. And here you can see this is taking shape. It looks so adorable. The blanket stitch here really helps add a little bit of pop and a little bit of detail here, just highlighting the contrasting color. It's tying it into the little sewing machine on the ribbon, which is adorable. So now we're getting here close to the end. We started right at that overlap seam of the ribbon, so we're right at the end here. Now our choice comes to finishing the top. So as you see in my example here, this one's got a tiny little Christmas tree just cut from wool felt and hand stitched down to the top, or we have this other example, darling little heart and flowers stacked and sewn on. So I'm just going to tie this off right here, knot my thread because I don't have very much left, and we'll rethread a new piece to sew the embellishment to the top. We're going to use this little example as our inspiration and cut a small heart from a piece of the wool felt. We're going to do this out of red. Okay, so here's our first try. It looks pretty good. I'm going to place it on here. I'm thinking this looks a little bit too big for the overall scale. So I'm just going to fold this in half again, and I'm just going to trim this down a little bit more to get a little bit smaller of a heart shape. So here we have our second try. I'm going to place this on, and this looks perfect. I love the size of this on here. So now I'm just going to take another needle and thread. We're going to start right at the top, that center top of the heart, coming up through the bottom so the knot is underneath my little applique here. And then I'm just going to go around the entire perimeter of that heart with just a little straight stitch, evenly spaced apart. Now here I'm using red thread on a red heart, so it's not really adding any extra detail. It's hidden, matching in the color of the applique. So we'll just continue to stitch all the way around until we get to the top side of that heart. And then we can come in and just pull in our final stitch. And then I'm going to push the needle all the way back through my little puff ball here, and it comes right out in my side ribbon. And then I can hide my knot right here with this other stitching, and then it's hidden, it's out of the way. So I'll just go ahead and tie the knot. And then we can clip off that thread. And there we have it. Our little tiny bottle cap pincushion is done. This is so adorable. I love this ribbon too. It's such a fun little print, the little Singer sewing machine, and it coordinates perfectly with our other pincushion with that little scissor ribbon trim. So we just go find our pins, poke them in, and we have two adorable keepsake pincushions to keep for years to come.